the west coast of the United States. A place that for decades has acted like a giant magnet, pulling people in from across the country, and even the world. Between 1940 and 2020, this region added over 42 million people to its population. But here's the weird part, since 2020, more than 500,000 people have left this beloved region. So, what makes people leave a place with a strong economy, beautiful weather, stunning landscapes, and exciting cities? Before we get into the answer, let's flash back to the past and see why this region became so successful in the first place. The story begins thousands of years ago, when humans first arrived at the shores of Washington, Oregon, and California and thought to themselves, "Wow, this place is paradise." Naturally, later on, European and American settlers felt the same way. But there was one big problem. The massive Rocky Mountains stood like a wall, blocking widespread settlement. Still, once the US acquired the region in the 19th century, real migration began. The legendary Oregon Trail lured settlers west with the promise of fertile land in the Willamette Valley. But that was just the beginning. Because in 1848, gold was suddenly discovered in California, and the real gold rush kicked off, sending everyone racing toward the Sierra Nevada. California's population exploded from just a few thousand to over 92,000, a massive boom. But the West Coast's success didn't end with gold. Its great weather, rich natural resources, and growing infrastructure helped it take off. California's Central Valley became one of the most productive farming areas on Earth. Immigrants from Japan, China, the Philippines, and all over the world came to be part of the dream. By 1900, California's population hit 1.5 million. Oregon and Washington were growing too, reaching 414,000 and 518,000, respectively. The geography of the West wasn't a barrier, it was an opportunity. Washington and Oregon's dense forests fueled a booming lumber industry. The rugged mountains offered countless chances for mining. And the ports of Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle became vital trade hubs that connected America to the rest of the world. And then came Hollywood. As industry grew, especially entertainment, Los Angeles slowly turned into the movie capital of the world. Filmmakers, actors, writers, and tons of creative minds came here to chase their dreams. The 1930s, a tough time in American history, the Great Depression and relentless Dust Bowl storms. People from the Midwest, exhausted by a harsh and unfruitful life, start heading west. In their minds, California is a golden land, a place to escape to, a place to start over. By 1940, the West Coast population reaches nearly 10 million. But this is just the beginning. World War II arrives, and suddenly, the region becomes the industrial heart of the country. In Seattle, Boeing factories are building airplanes around the clock. In Portland and San Francisco, ships are being launched one after another. Workers from every corner of the US flood in. The population booms. After the war, the West Coast becomes the center of global innovation. Silicon Valley is born in California, and from there, technology spreads across the globe. By 1950, California's population hits 15 million. And by 2020, nearly 40 million. Washington and Oregon are also shining bright alongside California. But just when everything seems to be going great, something changes. Starting in the 2010s, California's population growth slows down dramatically. Oregon and Washington continue growing until about 2020, but then their growth nearly stops too. What happened? Why are people leaving? Well, this is when we enter the COVID era. The pandemic shakes everything up. The high cost of living, especially in big cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, pushes people to rethink their future. Where are they going? To states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and even South Carolina, places where life is cheaper and new opportunities await. San Francisco was the first to see a population drop. Los Angeles soon followed. People started choosing a simpler, more affordable life over expensive homes. Even Oregon, which was booming just yesterday, has now seen its population growth nearly come to a halt. Portland's situation? It got even worse. The city's population actually declined. But here's the interesting part. Many Portlanders didn't go far, they just crossed a river and ended up in Vancouver. No, not that Vancouver in Canada, Vancouver, Washington. A small, quiet city just across the river in the neighboring state. But Washington didn't come out of this untouched either. After 2020, its population growth also slowed down. Even a major city like Seattle lost population between 2020 and 2022. Now, it's finally starting to grow again, but not nearly as fast as before. Yeah, 2020 turned everything upside down, not just in America, but across the globe. Still, many places managed to bounce back. But the American West? Well, it's a bit more complicated. To be honest, living on the West Coast is starting to feel like an impossible mission, especially in California, where the cost of living is higher than in many countries around the world. It's hard to believe, but even software engineers and employees at big tech companies are struggling to make ends meet. And it's not just because of high prices. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Let's break it down. The entire infrastructure of the West Coast was built around cars. Unlike the Northeast, where you can get around with trains and subways, here you need a car for everything. Going to work? Shopping? Anywhere? You have to drive. Now imagine gas prices go up, yeah, you're in trouble. The problem is gas is always expensive in the West. For example, in January 2025, the average price of a gallon of gas was $4.35 in California, $3.90 in Washington, $3.45 in Oregon. Compare that to Texas, where it was just $2.66. So if you want to fill up a 20-gallon tank in California, you'd be paying almost twice as much as in Texas. And this isn't just a one-time thing. This trend has been going on for years. Back in 2022, California hit a record high gas price, $6.44 per gallon. But gas is only one part of the story. Other costs, like food, have also skyrocketed. Why? Because of high labor costs, expensive transportation, and strict local regulations that drive prices up. Even basic shopping trips are among the most expensive in the entire country in these states. According to a recent article, California has the highest household grocery costs in all of America. Ever tried living in a major West Coast city on an average salary? Well, here's some bad news. You might not even be able to afford a shack, let alone buy a house. Let's start with something simple. On average, California families spend $300 a week on groceries.
The national average? About $270. You might think, come on, it's just 30 bucks. But hold on, that's only one piece of the puzzle. That 10% extra on food, when combined with 70% higher gas prices, paints a pretty scary picture. And that's just the beginning. The biggest problem out here? Housing. Yep, the thing that's considered a basic need in most of the country. In the West, it's become a luxury dream. San Francisco? Average home price, $1.5 million. Seattle? Over $800,000. Portland? A city once known for affordability, now nearing $550,000. And rent? Try paying over $3,000 a month in the big cities. That means your paycheck disappears before you even think about saving. But the problem isn't just high prices, it's the lack of options. Tough construction laws, local resistance to development, and complicated permitting systems make it nearly impossible to build affordable housing. So if you're a regular employee or even a teacher, your chances of owning a home in the city are slim to none. But who gets hit the hardest? The unsung heroes of city life. Teachers, nurses, firefighters, EMTs, police officers. These are the people holding the city together. But their salaries aren't enough to live in the cities they serve. So what do? Tent cities and encampments have spread across California, Washington, and Oregon like wildfire. As of 2024, California, over 170,000 people without a home. Washington, more than 25,000. Oregon, over 17,000. And as living costs keep rising, so do those numbers. People are simply looking for a place where survival feels possible. A place where homelessness isn't the first thing you see downtown. But wait, there's more. Nature has entered the chat. Seasonal wildfires? Yeah, those are now annual and worse than ever. Tens of thousands of acres burn every summer, wiping out forests, homes, even entire towns. And the smoke? It can linger for weeks, choking cities like Portland and Seattle with some of the worst air quality on Earth. That toxic haze makes it hard to breathe, dangerous for the sick, and miserable for everyone else. And that's not all. Now add in earthquakes, droughts, and flash floods, all getting more intense every year. It's like the Earth itself is saying, I've had enough. And finally, let's talk politics. The West Coast has become the symbol of progressive ideals. States like California, Oregon, and Washington are known for their strict environmental regulations, social justice laws, and public health initiatives. For some, these are bold steps forward. For others, they become symbols of overreach and control. More and more people are feeling like this just isn't home anymore. So they pack up and head to states like Texas, Idaho, or Florida, places they feel offer more freedom, fewer rules, and lower costs. This political migration is no small thing. It's fueling America's growing divide. The West Coast is seen by some as a model for the future, and by others as a warning sign of failure. And all of this? It's playing out in the shadow of a world still reeling from the COVID pandemic, which made everything harder for everyone. Remote work changed everything. For a lot of people, it was the great escape. Suddenly, they didn't have to live in the expensive, crowded cities of the West Coast. They could move to places like Arizona, Nevada, or Texas, where life was cheaper, simpler, and more spacious. For many, it wasn't just a move, it was a goodbye. Once they found a place where they could breathe easy, the idea of going back to the insane cost of living on the West Coast? No thanks. When rent is sky high, and buying a home feels like a fantasy, going back just doesn't make sense. But hey, there's some good news too. These 3 states are starting to breathe again. Washington, in particular, is seeing population growth once more. Still, let's not forget. The problems haven't gone anywhere. They're just lurking under the surface, like a sleeping giant. Out of control living costs, broken services, rising homelessness, wildfires that just won't stop. It's getting harder than ever to live here. And when people leave because of politics, culture, or price, they rarely come back. Now I'm gonna be honest with you. This was a tough video for me to make. Because I love the West Coast. I live in Oregon, and I want everyone to love it as much as I do. But we have to face the truth. There are serious problems here, and ignoring them won't make them go away. If these 3 states don't make bold, serious changes, the future's gonna look dark. And fewer people will get to enjoy the beauty and opportunity this place still has to offer. Because the West Coast isn't just a place on the map. It's a story. A story of dreams, struggles, and change. And its future? That's up to us. So if you love this place like I do, it's time to speak up. It's time to fight for it.